not where he would want to do that. It'd
The
probably
calendar chairman is okay too, he's not gonna be an opponent?
The calendar chairman has been a problem, and I will not.
He delayed it, but he's
He
also,
delayed it.
he now is on the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee where this will be heard. The new House committees came out today. And Todd Hunter, the chair of calendars, is one of the new members of the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee. And frankly, that committee always had a problem getting any of its bills on the House floor for reasons I've never completely understood. So maybe having Hunter on the committee will give the bills a little more juice. But
I mean, again, I think, you know, part of what we're doing here is something that's really, really important. Is it in the scheme of things, of the speaker's priorities, of the, you know, LightGov's priorities, is it something that's really high on their radar screen? Not so much, and that's probably okay. So, you don't wanna make big fights out of absolutely everything. Yeah,
Does everyone vote after the first reading, after the second reading?
after the first reading, no one votes.
Okay.
It goes to committee, and then when it's heard in committee, the committee votes.
Okay.
Reported favorably from committee, reported out of calendars, back to the floor. Second reading, they all vote,
That's what I'm missing.
assuming that they're all there. Whoever's there votes. And then third reading, they all vote.
Is there a quorum requirement?
Yes.
So it can be bad if we do first reading or second reading.
If
with no
a bunch of
changes.
members run away from the state, as they have done in the past, and eliminate the quorum, then nothing happens. Hopefully that will no longer.
we'll all be having a much more exciting time if that happens.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
That's been a while.
that'll mean a lot bigger things are happening than just our little old bill.
Yeah.
But we want our supporters there on the day that the reading.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. That is
Yes.
important.
That's right.
Absolutely.
You want to make sure that your people get there. It's just like an election, in November. I mean, you want to identify your people and make sure they get.
Right, we've talked a lot about sort of the inside game piece, the lobbying that we're all gonna do, actually going to members' offices and talking to the staff. That is like core to success. There is an outside game piece as well. So right before a vote, that's when you want to drive those email messages, phone calls from the district. That's when you wanna have lots of people in the gallery if you can, that's great. If you can't, having people handing out flyers in the well as they go in. The well is the term for the doors to the floor. The members all have, well, mostly all come in the same way. So you can actually stand with your flyers and, flyer the members as they walk in. That kind of thing draws attention to your bill and shows that there's grassroots support, and you wanna do all of those things on the day of a vote.
Can I ask another green question?
Sure.
How does the convergence between the Senate version of the bill and the House version of the bill work? If it passes Senate, passes the House chambers, how do they mesh together?
A bill has to pass both chambers.
Okay.
One bill.
One bill.
So
A
either the House bill has to pass House and Senate, or the Senate and House.
So what usually happens is, if their bills are moving in both directions, there comes a point where the members confer sort of privately and decide which version, which actual language they want to settle on. And then either both versions are amended to look the same, and then it's just a race to the finish. Or they sort of look at the calendar and see, well, this one's further along in the process, and there's, these deadlines ahead, so we're gonna put all our eggs in this basket, amend this one and go.
And what the governor would decide which one to sign?
No, they very rarely do both bills pass. Yeah.
They're that organized?
Yeah, surprisingly, that's why they have so many rules. And there's lots and lots more rules. You'll see the rule book is, 200 pages long. 5 days to lay out before a committee hearing or before your bill goes to the floor. That's a handy one. We get 5 days notice before we have to jump. In the meantime, we're doing all that background work, so hopefully we actually know earlier than that. So, all right, so hands raised for people who want to do the first practice session visit. Excellent. Come on to the front. Let's go ahead and circulate this. Let's circulate this one. Have a flyer. Go ahead and pass this around. So, essentially, a lobby visit is a cold call in person. There's a cold in person. You walk in the door, you don't need to make an arrangement. In fact, I would recommend not. Just drop by. And we're gonna ask for the staff person who covers criminal justice. Fourth Amendment is considered part of the criminal justice portfolio because warrants mostly are used by police. So there's some logic to that. So these guys are sorted into groups and staffed up by committee, and the committees define kind of the issue portfolio. So in this case, we're gonna do a house visit. Scott, do you wanna be the staffer?
Sure. And I would add, they may not have a criminal justice person if they're not on a criminal justice related committee, but it's worth asking, and usually they'll field you to somebody if you ask that.
So take a look at the flyer. It's got some bullet points. We haven't really gone through them in detail, but I think most of us are comfortable that we can walk in and say, I support the Fourth Amendment, and I would like to see warrants for cell phone location data. That's basically the message, not too complicated. If you look at your flyer, you will notice that at the top, it has a blank for your name and contact information. You should put your name and contact information. This is a relationship building effort. You are a person. You are building a relationship with another person. They want to be able to call you again. The more successful you are, the more calls you will get. So put your, before you walk in the door, make sure you've got a few of these with your name and your contact information written on there so that the staffers have somebody to call back. Then you're gonna just ask for the right staffer. You're gonna make a short pitch. You may or may not get asked questions at that meeting. You're going to leave your flyer, and you're gonna make sure you know the name and contact information of the person you spoke to.
Get a business card if possible.
They all have business cards. They are happy to give you one. In the back, there is a handout, I should bring it up in front, that is a lobby log. After you've made a visit, it is often very helpful to write down the name of the person on the card, when you made the visit, and anything that you learned from that visit. This office is barely moved in. They just got their desks sent to the building yesterday. We need to go back in a week when they've had a chance to turn their computers on. Like, that's a good lobby log note, because it tells us we didn't really connect on that visit, but there's no negativity, so we should just go back. So.
And a lot of them are right at that stage right now. You walk around the offices and everybody's got utterly blank walls and furniture still moving in and so.
So Scott, I want you to be a softy staff. You're a
softy, all right.
supportive staff member interested in the topic. Open the door and walk in.
Come on in.
Good afternoon, Cyrus Barucha.
Scott Henson.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Henson. I'm here to seek your House Congressperson's support on a topic we care about, the Texas Electronic Privacy Coalition. We're asking for legislation that would require warrants for gathering of cell phone location data. I have a flyer for you that I'd like to meet with you, if I may.
All right.
And it's an important topic, I believe. I'm sure the congressperson cares deeply about the Fourth Amendment. We have a little bit of information about the law that we're proposing.
I think my boss might have heard of it. I don't know if she cares deeply about it or not. But,
It's an important thing these days. The law that we're dealing with now is outdated by about at least 3 decades. And to be honest, it's laws all over the country, federal and state laws, have just not kept track with the changes in technology. We're asking to update the law. Can I follow up with your congressperson sometime in the future, if that's all right?
maybe, tell me, who's gonna be mad at my boss if she supports this?
Nobody who cares about the Fourth Amendment and the Constitution, Some people say that this law is going to make life harder for law enforcement. That may be true, but only to the sense that we are requiring warrants for proper investigations. Currently, law enforcement has been coaxed into making voluminous requests for data, gathering data that we think they aren't even using or needing. Putting the warrant requirement on won't hinder real criminal investigations, and Texas police will still be able to catch the bad guys. They'll just need to go through this process of getting a warrant. And that protects all of us, Scott.
So what do you want from my boss?
We'd like to get his or her support on the bill once we have a bill number, and I can follow up with you once we've got that.
That was great.
I'll write his name in the log and say he was a...
That's right, you didn't give him your card.
That's right, I would have asked for a business card. The only other thing I'd mention is that they're not congresspersons, they're representatives in the House and senators in the Senate. Congress is DC, but otherwise.
All right, here, I'll do the next one. Who would like to be our next guinea pig? Scapegoat. Oh, come on.
I'll do it.
Excellent. Come on up. So this time I'm gonna be a little more brisk.
Hi, can I speak to your staff who are involved in criminal justice matters?
I think that's probably, our boss isn't really on that committee, so that's, I think that's, hey, Steve, is that you? I don't know who that is. I'm sorry, we're not really very organized.
That's fine, I'd love to speak with someone. Can I speak with you?
Okay, sure,
Fantastic.
sure.
My name is Brandon. I'm with the Texas Electronic Privacy Coalition, and I'm just going around today to speak with people about a bill we're trying to promote. It particularly involves law enforcement requests for geolocation data from cell phones. Are you familiar with the issue?
Well, I have a cell phone.
Fantastic. Well, then, law enforcement right now is able to request from your cell phone provider all information related to your location without any warrant. This is an issue that we object to, and we see it as a Fourth Amendment privacy issue. So right now, we're trying to promote legislation that would require any law enforcement official to have a probable cause warrant in order to request that information from your cell phone provider, among other things. Is this
All right.
something that your member has taken an interest in the past?
Well, I don't think so, but I see that you've got Restore the Fourth on here, and
Absolutely.
we like them, and don't know about the ACLU, but.
Well, this is a great issue in that it's a consensus building issue. There are so many people from so many different sides of the aisle who are getting involved. Last year in the House session, 2/3 of the members were on board with this. And we
Oh.
had, a great number of co-sponsors.
Well, maybe my boss does support this, and I just don't know. Go ahead and give me your contact information, and I'll see what our position is. I'm looking at this, it says that, Fort Worth, Houston, DPS, are they gonna oppose this bill?
Actually, right now, we've been working with them to craft a bill that can meet the needs of everyone involved in this, both the consumer and the citizenry, as well as the district attorney and the police departments. We want everyone to have access to the information they need to keep us safe. At the same time, we want to see Fourth Amendment privacy issues protected and codified by law. So As it stands right now, we feel that we have a good working relationship with them. We hope that you would hear the same.
All right. Well, then I'll take your
Fantastic.
flyer
Can
and I'll.
I get your follow-up information as well? I'd love to follow up with you
Yeah,
by email and
I
find
have a
out.
card. Here you go.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any notes? Crowd?
Blow your nose. Me.
I like the end of, you have a cell phone, right? Sort of.
Yes, this
And then
one's
go from
always,
there.
that's always a good one. I would say that we have to be careful what we say about negotiations. If, for example, you know, we've been talking to Harris County DA, but that doesn't mean that the Houston Police Department is on board. And most offices won't distinguish until the distinction is brought to them. Like if they find out the DAs are on one side and the police are on another, that's kind of an interesting thing, but they won't, you know, they'll just like, what do my law enforcement people think? So you don't wanna overstate where we are in negotiation. Because the last thing we want is for them to get on the phone with HPD and have them go, no, we hate that bill. So it makes us look less credible. So usually I would say something more like, we think there's room for negotiation, and we're happy to meet with them. You know, so that it leaves it kind of wide open, that we're in the mindset of meeting, but doesn't track with any particular factual thing. Scott's laughing.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's limited time, and in the case of, you know, the role that you were playing, it's not necessarily your issue.
Right.
I see here that we have 4 key components. These are specific components of the bill.
Mhm.
Are these also talking points?
Yes.
Just 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank
Yep,
you.
they are. They're
Gotcha.
all talking points, and you can kind of talk up more than the other. That also gets to an interesting sort of lens. We've talked a little bit about the nonpartisan lenses, like whether people are from Houston, where they have a Stingray, like that stuff. But there is the partisan lens. So for Republicans, it is a talking point that the Obama administration has opposed improving people's Fourth Amendment rights. It's a true statement. For Democrats, it's equally true that Fourth Amendment protections are a really important way to avoid prosecuting the wrong people. And Democrats are highly attuned to that. You know, police accountability has been a very high-profile kind of piece of the last election cycle. So there are some talking points that are not necessarily on your fact sheet, but are good to think about as you walk in the door. And again, it gets to that person's framework. Like, okay, these are some factually true things, and that's all good. But then, is there something that they're looking for that would be really, you know, more emotionally compelling? So let's try a meeting with a Democrat. Who would like to volunteer to meet with a Democrat? We're more comfortable with Republicans in this crowd, huh? Well, okay then. Scott and I'll role play a Democrat.
All right,
You wanna be the role player or the Democrat?
either way.
Yeah, be the Democrat.
All right.
I'll do the role.
Hello, come on in.
Hi, I'm looking for the staffer who works on criminal justice issues.
Well, there's probably not really one, so you can talk to me though. What do you have?
All right, well, I'm with the Texas Electronic Privacy Coalition, and we are trying to get a warrant requirement for cell phone location data. That means do you have a cell phone?
Sure.
So every time your cell phone pings, if you have a smartphone, every time it looks for access, it is tracking where you are. And over time, that creates a very granular map of everywhere you are and everywhere you've been.
So this is like what the NSA gathers.
It is, yes. There's been a lot of high-profile, news coverage of that NSA level. But this also happens at the state and local level. And since most police are state and local, and the vast majority of interactions that citizens have with police are state and local, we think it's important to have a warrant requirement here in Texas. So we're proposing that there be a probable cause warrant for cell phone location data. And we think that that will protect citizens from unwarranted surveillance and accidental, being accidentally picked up in needle in a haystack kind of investigations.
So I guess the cops in my district are gonna hate this, right?
The police oppose this bill, but we believe that they can absolutely do their job without the kind of data that they now have access to.
Who else opposes it?
Some DAs, most police agencies, and that's where the fight is. And the people who support it are a wide range of groups supporting stronger standards for the application of the Fourth Amendment in the modern era, including the ACLU and Texans for Accountable Government, Restore the Fourth, and EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
All right, well, if you give me your information, I'll pass it along.
And can I have your card?
Sure, all right.
And can I come back so that I can find out what your boss thinks about it?
Sure, that'll be fine.
Great,
All
I'll
right.
come back in about a week.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Um,
I couldn't get the Democrat pitch going.
Sorry. Well, another thing I would mention there, and this is good, because people are gonna ask you about the opposition. That's one of the most common things that people ask when you go into an office, is they wanna know, how is this gonna get me in trouble, basically. And,
It's true.
and Kathy actually answered that, she probably overstated really what the opposition is to this bill. I would not say that most law enforcement agencies are opposed to this bill. The truth is that only 2 law enforcement agencies ever expressed opposition to this bill. It was Houston and Dallas PD. And
That's true.
And DPS expressly stayed out of it.
Right.
And said they were not going to take a position, that whatever the
Right,
ledge said,
that's
they
true.
would do.
I forgot about that.
And the smaller agencies, to an agency, stayed completely out of it because they don't use this nearly as much as Dallas and Houston, and they just didn't have a dog in the fight.
So I should have said, I don't know, I'll get back to you on that.
Or you could say, and this would be totally accurate, last session, there were a couple of agencies, police agencies that opposed it. Most law enforcement didn't seem to mind one way or the other. And we're right now trying to work with the district attorneys to take care of prosecutors' concerns, and hopefully we'll have a negotiated bill when it comes to committee. If that's too much to remember, then
Yeah.
I'll get back to you, as always, fine. But that's kind of that's where we are. And it is the case that I think we will probably peel the prosecutors away. They don't really want to fight over this. Their boss kind of basically agrees with this in Harris County. They know that the statute's not any good, and so, don't overstate the opposition. It was bitter opposition.
Good note.
But it was not overwhelming in terms of the number of opponents.
So we have former staffers in here. I'd love to have a former staffer play the staffer and have somebody who's never done it before do a practice run. Nobody wants to volunteer?
Carly, staff force.
Yes. I'll be a staffer? Excellent.
You know, one other thing really quick on this question of if you, like, people ask you, because it's true that people do all the time ask about opposition. I think another thing that's good is if you can kind of summarize the whatever it is, whatever, you know, what you're saying sounds absolutely right to me. And then kind of immediately start talking about how, oh yeah, but you know, last session in the House there were over 100
Yeah.
co-authors, and you can a lot of times kind of
That's
turn that
right.
like it reminds me of when you get interviewed and people are like, "What's the worst thing about you?" And you're like, "Oh man, I work so hard." Yeah. You know, it's kind of like that. You know, you're kind of like when people ask about opposition, it's actually an opportunity for us to talk about one of the real strengths of this bill, how many people in the House already support it.
Right,
So,
yeah, very good.
Sorry, Carly.
No, it's good. It's been a while since I've done my visits. Carly, would you like to sit in the staffer chair? Who would like to do a practice run? I promise it really helps break the ice so that when you end up over there, you're gonna feel better about your visits. Come on down.
Do you have a requirement, do you want me to be friendly or not friendly? Because I mean, last session I was very friendly.
Yes, you were. Well, I know. I would say.
You were also super busy, is what you were.
Yeah, I would say, think about some of your house staff mates and like people that you felt like weren't quite as on board as you.
Okay.
Like not opposing it, you know, not like coming with any predisposition to be against it, but, you know, not already on board.
Okay. Go on.
Hi, my name is John Isom. I'm with the Texas Electronic Privacy Commission. And we have House Bill number 1518, which is to require warrants for cell phone, for tracking cell phone data. So we would like the police to need a probable cause warrant before they get tracking information that's gathered from each of our cell phones as it's used normally. This is a fact sheet about our proposed bill. With my cards here and there's my contact number, name, information is also printed on the sheet. Is electronic surveillance and privacy something that your representative is interested in?
Well, I don't know where our representative would stand on this, but I don't know, what do you mean by surveillance? Are the police tracking our location? What does that mean?
Oh, that's a good question. Basically, our cell phones as they operate have to check in with cell towers, and the cell towers end up with a computer-generated list of which cell phones are in which areas at different times. And so the police have access through the telephone company portal to all of that information. And so the police can track where people have been and who they called and what other numbers they've called and stuff. And it's that information is really useful for them as they try to solve crimes, but it's also information that they don't need to have about people who aren't suspected of any crimes. So what we would like is for them to require a warrant to get information about specific suspects of crimes.
So, well, do you know how much this data is actually used to solve crimes? I mean, if it's useful for the police, why would we want to make their job harder if they're protecting us?
We certainly don't. We don't. I would really like an opportunity to get back to you about how much the data is used. I'll check with colleagues and do some research and talk to you about that. We as the Texas Electronic Privacy Coalition support the police using this data to solve crimes. We're just wanting to change the state of affairs so they can't just log into the portal and get information about anybody or anything. It has to be someone who's suspected of a crime and there be a specific crime. Just like when they search a person or a car, they have to have probable cause to believe that there's been a crime committed.
Okay, well, I will talk to my boss about that and see where he stands on it.
Okay, could I have your cards?
Sure. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Do you always want to ask to speak to the staffer in charge of this issue
Yeah.
before going into the whole discussion? Otherwise, they'll have to they'll interrupt you and you'll lose your flow. And
Right,
so do you
it'll all
wanna
be a
ask?
little silly. Yeah, I realize that.
Do you want this back?
Very good, all right.
What else should I have done differently or?
Yeah, any other notes?
Um,